Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Sarah Gergel, and I work with the Living Archives Project, where we are collecting stories of how COVID-19 impacted various communities in Charlotte-Mecklenburg County area. Today is April 17th, 2023, and this week there were 30 reported cases of COVID-19 in Charlotte-Mecklenburg County, which shows a 52% decrease over the last 2 weeks. Therefore, each subject is comfortable not wearing a mask these days. Dina, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Dina, and I am 35 years old. I am originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo, from the city of Kinshasa, the capital. It is the first largest French-speaking city in the world, right before Paris. And I came to the U.S. directly here in Charlotte in 2003. So this year actually marks 20 years that I've been in the U.S. I spent some time in Ohio. I lived there for 5 years and then decided to come back here in Charlotte. So I really feel like I'm almost like a Charlottean. But being back to Charlotte, I decided to sort of rediscover or discover the city, take some time to invest myself in communities, local activities, library stuff. So that's about it. I am married with 2 beautiful daughters, with the man of my dream. And I come from a family of 5. And all of them live here in Charlotte, my parents, brothers, and sister.
It's amazing, Dina. Would you briefly describe your physical image for us?
Yes. So a little bit about my physical appearance. I wear braids. I'm wearing braids right now. I love this because it sort of adds a little bit of ethnic. It brings out my ethnic part, I guess. I am Black. I'm wearing a dress, African print, too. Recently, I've been just falling in love with African prints, and with the summer, it brings out all the colors. Yes. So, yes, I'm about 5'7". Let's see, brown eyes. Yes.
Thank you so much, Dina. Your dress is absolutely lovely.
Thank you.
Yes. So, wow, 20 years in the U.S. and 14 of those in Charlotte.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell me about, how was that like transitioning from, at a younger age, from the Republic of Congo to the U.S./Charlotte?
The transition was a little bit hard, but I remember when I was about 9 years old in the Congo, my mother traveled to the U.S. She came for a women's convention, and she brought back some brochures. She was in California, so she brought back some brochures and just books about California, about visiting California. And for some reason, she just left it in, the house laying around. And I found some of them, and then I started looking. I remember the brochure was about Long Beach, and I was like, one day I'm going to go to the U.S., I'm going to live there, I'm going to study there. I am going to do everything there. My career is going to be there. And a few years later, I learned that my parents were planning to actually come here to the U.S. So I just realized that, well, somehow I'm very spiritual. So somehow God had put the dream in me already, preparing me, and at the same time preparing my parents. But the move was quite hard. It wasn't what we expected. My father had to leave. He came here. So he was the breadwinner of the family back in Congo. And when he came, so we had to rely on the money that he was making here to send back to Congo, and try to survive the best way we can. So our life drastically changed back there when he left. But we were excited because we knew why it was happening. I had to drop out of school for a few months because we were actually planning the trip. And like I said, it was all bearable because we knew what was waiting for us on the other side of the ocean. And we had to go to Zambia first. So we left Congo and we went to Zambia. And going to Zambia was supposed to be only for a few weeks. It turned to be 2 months, which was also another exciting part of my life, because I really feel like I'm a traveler. I love to discover the world. So it was a sort of another experience for me to see another country. And Zambia is a beautiful country. We lived in Lusaka, in the capital city, and then we moved here in Charlotte. So when we came to Charlotte, my uncle was already here, and we were with my dad. Unfortunately, my mom could not come with us, so we spent about a year without her. But the transition was difficult in terms of learning the language, having to go to school, and trying to make new friends. When I arrived here, I believe I started 10th grade halfway. And that was hard because I had to make friends, which I didn't really make a lot. But then I started to remember the friends that I left back home. And that was a little bit difficult. But I had to focus on learning English because once I graduate, I was planning to go to college. Because remember, I said when I was 9, I said I was going to study here. So I had to learn English quickly and then apply to college once graduating.
So tell me a little bit about your life. You said that you moved to Ohio and then you moved back, and now you're married and you have children. So how's that been for you?
It's been good. I wanted to go to Ohio again because I just thought, okay, so we've been in Charlotte for so many years. I haven't discovered the other states. The U.S. is so big. Why limit myself to just Charlotte, let alone North Carolina? I want to see other states, see what they look like. So I packed on myself. I actually applied for a master's program. Okay. I study public health, and it's going to be relevant later. But I applied for a master's of public health in Case Western. So I moved to Cleveland, and after the master's, I stayed there for a little bit. And during that time, I decided to apply for an internship, which led me to Ethiopia. And then after Ethiopia, I went to Belgium. And then in Belgium, that's where I met my husband. And when we met and we got married, he decided to move here in the States. So he moved to the States, and in Cleveland, we made the decision that it would be best to come back to Charlotte, be with family, if we're going to start a family for childcare purposes. So then we came back to Charlotte with him and then had kids here.
Awesome. Wow, thank you for sharing that, Dina. So before we started the interview process, we did this little activity together called the hand map. Is there anything from your hand map that you would like to share with us?
Let's see. So I mentioned that I'm very family tied, and that has always been, I guess, the center of everything. That whenever I move out or whenever I do something to discover another part of the world, I sort of try to go back to the roots, to my roots, or it's kind of like if I feel unstable about something or unsure about new frontier, I feel like I need to go back to my roots and reset. So that's why I say that I'm very family tied, because they sort of bring me back to the main purpose of my life, the main goal. And with the addition of my husband now being married, he's also sort of like the center of my world, I guess. And I mentioned that I'm very spiritual. It's something that guides everything that I do. I had some time where I was doubting about my faith, or I didn't really see the purpose of that. But then I came back with this time of purpose of, if I follow God, I'm going to make him the center of my world and decision. And it's really going to be a life full of service. And ever since, he has been giving me a purpose in life. So
That's amazing.
yes. Something else, and I can go everywhere.
Whatever
right?
you want to share.
Yes. I've talked about some people that inspire me or keep me grounded. I talk about my in-laws. It's an addition to what I consider a larger family. I've been lucky to have great in-laws, really large in-laws. It's a big family, but I have been really lucky to meet them in my life. And they've played also a very interesting and important role during the pandemic. So I'll probably get to share that later.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So tell me, since you mentioned it, let's talk about your experience over the last 3 years with the pandemic.
There is so much thing that I can share about COVID-19, how it just turned life upside down and turned everything upside down, and for the good and bad. But, excuse me, I think the turning point was that year, 2020, we were planning the first family trip back to Kinshasa with my daughter, one daughter at a time. And we made reservation. And at the time, I told my husband, let's go earlier in March. And he insisted that March was not a good time. Let's wait till May. We can go. At the time, my daughter was not in school yet, so we had the freedom to sort of go anytime. We're not bound to vacation time, depending on school calendar. We were not bound to that. And I listened to him, so I was like, okay, we can wait for May. So we booked a trip to Kinshasa for May 2020. And the pandemic, I think it was declared sometime around March. I'm not sure, but I know that at work, mid-April, that's when they said there is something big happening in this world and we need to start working from home. And it was the lockdown, so no travel. All the plans that we had made for that year, it was going to be canceled. And we were so excited to go back. And one of the main reasons was so that we can go see my in-laws and my daughter could meet her grandmother on her paternal side, on her dad's side. So that sort of was the beginning of the change. And I was lucky to work from home, but at the time my husband was an essential worker and he had to go to work every day. But in the beginning, it was really uncertain what this disease was, and there was fear. So seeing him going to work every day was kind of scary. But he had to go because he had to make the money. And at the time, we did not know about the sort of benefit that were happening for people who were not able to work or things like that. It happened much later, but we were not aware of that. So he was always going, and every time he comes back, it would be the spraying, washing of clothes, and making sure that nobody touches him first, and we'll spray the house and everything. And he was also extremely picky about what we do when we stayed in the house. He was like, you cannot go out, you cannot do this. Just stay indoor. When you're done working, stay inside. And my daughter at the time was, I think, about 5, going on 6, something like that. And she did not really understand what was happening, but she just realized that suddenly nobody could go out. There was no going out to play. And remember, at the time, it was spring was starting and summer, but there was no going out to play. And then there was no going to see her grandparents, which she used to see them almost every weekend, go and spend the night there. And because it was sort of a disease that was very dangerous for older adults, we were trying to protect them. So there was no going to visit them. It was just over the phone. And at the time, the work that I was doing, it's not a job that I necessarily enjoy, but I like the company, but it's not something that I went to school for and was not my passion. But it paid well. So I kept working, but I was a little bit miserable inside. I was miserable. I did not know how to quit. I did not know why to quit. As long as I didn't find something else yet to replace it, I just stayed there. But like I said, the company was extremely good. It was a great company to work for. It was just not what I wanted to do. And I was in sales, and it was extremely stressful. And during the COVID too, sales was essential part, because we actually sold tires, commercial tires for the big truck. And the trucks were the ones going to Walmart and Amazon actually also, and Target. So the service was still important, but it was stressful because some people were put into furlough, so you had to step into the role, and we were juggling a lot of things. And it made things extremely hard. But then in August, my daughter was supposed to start school, kindergarten. And it was going to be remote, of course, at home. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. My husband was still going out to work, so he was not going to be able to help with school. And we didn't know how that was going to happen. Are we going to help them do the homework? Are we going to be there in class? But at the same time, I have to be at work answering phone calls. And I started in August, and I started to think, I'm going to burn out if I keep doing this. I'm going to explode. And everything in the house became so tense. We were not talking to each other anymore. It was just yelling and yelling. And then my husband he said, I don't know what's going to happen as far as finance, but you need to quit your job. And I quit. I had to resign. It was one of the best decisions, because finally I was able to try and pursue my passion, which was public health. Yeah. And it's kind of weird to say this, but the pandemic and public health it goes hand in hand. This is what the field is for. Yeah. So it just made sense that this is your chance. This is the time you can find something to do. Yeah. And don't be afraid of the money. Don't be afraid of what's, as far as covering, as far as income, but try. And my husband was just like, go for it. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And I quit, and I went for it.
Okay. What was that like?
It was interesting. So I quit in September. And I was able to be completely involved with school, with my daughter's school, logging in with on the iPad. And little by little, she learned to do it on her own, to sign on to Zoom, help with her homework. And part of me felt like, this feels good. It's as much as I want to be that professional mom, but I also want to be that mom involved with my kids' study. And it was fun. But now it was, okay, so what do I do? There was a lot of COVID-19 tracing jobs. somehow I started applying for them, but I didn't get any, which I was surprised. But I thought that's okay, that's fine. Then I saw the city of Charlotte started doing some grants about creating messages for your community, especially immigrant community, minority communities, vulnerable communities in general.
Yeah.
And my dad said, why don't you apply for it? I said, I cannot apply for a grant. I've never applied for a grant, and I don't know how. Yes, we studied that at school, but I don't know how that works. He said, just try. It's either no or yes. Mm-hmm. And I tried, and I got it.
That's amazing.
I was almost surprised. But not only that I got it, they said that they were asking for just creating a media, some sort of message for your community. It can be, a picture with something. And at that time, the vaccine was already becoming, they were developing the vaccine and trying to just encourage people to get it. So it was also developed a message encouraging people to get the vaccine. If they have any questions, any doubts, to also let us know. So I said, I don't know how the Congolese community is going to see it, but I'm going for it. And then I got some really positive response, and people were telling me, it's not, you don't decide who gets the vaccine. You just put the message out there. And if people want it, yes. If they don't want it, no. But you shouldn't feel concerned. Like I was afraid to feel like I'm going to be attacked. Like, why are you supporting the vaccine or something? But it didn't happen. They were just like, thank you for the information. And years later, or a few months later, I learned that the poster that I made, or the image, the message that I created, was chosen by the CDC to be exposed in one of their temporary exhibition. Yes, I didn't get a chance to go see it, but it was. So that started sort of I got a foot into finally doing what I wanted to do with public health. And that grant gave, like they say, work begets work. So that grant opened doors to other grants, bigger grants, and then becoming like a trusted messenger in my community, and really taking on that role and saying that we're just conveying the message, and it's important to have the community be well informed. Mm-hmm. So we created some panel discussion, facilitated group discussion about the vaccine, about the COVID-19 in general. And yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me about, how did you feel that your engagement with the community went during that time and now? So, because at that time there's so many restrictions still, and now a lot of the restrictions have been uplifted. And I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of the messages about the vaccine have kind of lessened than before. So tell me about that transition, and what is it like for you now in your community and as an advocate?
Yes, so I want to say in the beginning, we felt a little bit left out. When COVID started, in general, the world, were concerned that Africa was going to be hit really badly because of lack of resources. And this is something we don't know, but we know that people need to go to the hospital. People have issues with just respiratory issues in general, and they need ventilators and stuff. So that was a big concern. And to us, because we have family members there, and you have some Congolese here who are students, so the parents are there. So it was a big concern in the beginning. Then we started to realize that it was not a hit as we thought it was going to be hit. Number one, because of, this was still theory. The weather, it's fairly hot. So the vaccine did not just spread as much as it did here. And also in the beginning here, the idea was that during the summer, it might diminish. The spread will decrease. But again, those were very talks of beginning 2020.
Yeah.
And overall, also the fact that it was affecting older population, the worst. Africa, 60% is young. So that also sort of slowed the spread drastically. And that helped. At least it helped put us at ease, because if it had impacted Africa the way it impacted especially Europe at the time, it would have been very devastating, because first of all, a lot of people, a lot of family members depend on the money being sent from here to there. And just imagine having to bury people every week, but having money coming from here when also you don't know about your job here. So that put us really at ease. But we were still concerned about just family members in Europe, because that's where it hit really bad. And in the news, there was really no talk of how it affected Black population, minority, just in general. And then we started to learn about Louisiana, about Mississippi, how Black communities started to be really affected with this because of comorbidities, because of other factors. Then that's where fear really started to settle in. But it didn't feel like there was a lot of engagement from at least the government, local government here with vulnerable communities. And it just felt like we were left, to figure it out on our own. So everything was based on news, but we will watch news from Europe, news from Africa, news from Asia to just make sense of everything that happened. And I think the leadership of the country here was maybe not the best at putting people at ease. So that also worsened everything. So with my community, I decided I wasn't so much involved with activities before. And I said, this is the time that we just try to wake up, gather people, as many people as we can, just start messages, start seeing what can work, what will work, and what will not work. So when I started with the grant, at first it was just a poster that shared on social media that responded well. Then we said, okay, we're going to move to a Q&A session. And I was able to get in touch with a nurse in Mecklenburg County, and she said, yes, we're actually trying now to reach really vulnerable population communities, and that was 2021. The deputy director is available to organize, work with you. If you guys need to do those Q&A session, we can organize that. And we did that. The response was great. It was on Zoom. Lots of people connected with questions. And at that point, it was just, there was no stupid questions. Ask whatever question, because we still don't have enough answers. And if your question is, what is the government doing? We don't trust ask it. And really the questions were from everywhere. And I'm really glad that she was able to answer any questions political. If she didn't have the answer, she will say it very nicely that, I don't have the answer. I'm not a politician. I'm a doctor. So we started with Zoom, and then little as restrictions started to fall, we were doing small gathering with masks. Then we did a program where we were just giving informations, but this time it was not creating brochures, but the brochures that were available on the Mecklenburg side, translating it into all local languages. And then we did videos ourselves with grants from Mecklenburg County. We did videos in 4 languages, Lingala, English, French, and Swahili, to encourage people to get the vaccine, and also if they have questions to just make sure that they ask. Those videos were well received. We shared them on Facebook, Instagram, social media, WhatsApp groups, and then eventually begin with, again, more restriction falling. We were able to gather and talk about these things. And of course, with the vaccine, the next stage, once we were sort of able to convince adults, the next stage was when they started saying that children can get the vaccine. First of all, it was pregnant women, actually. Let me go back to that. How to talk to pregnant women. And the fear was apparent, and that it was hard to get over, because as an adult, when you do risk and benefit analysis, it's like, okay, I'm 35. If something happens, I die. Well, I have kids. I leave kids, right? And if nothing happens, great. But if I'm pregnant, I don't know what's going to happen to that baby. Yes, the studies are there, but I just don't know what's going to happen down the line stuff. And some will just prefer to wait until they give birth and then take the vaccine. And when it was with teenagers, that was also about the reproductive health, how it's going to affect their fertility. And it was, if it's not, I don't know what's the difference between boys and girls, but some will feel more comfortable vaccinating boys than girls. And again, it's sort of like, hey, if we listen to the person doing the risk analysis benefit, and if it sort of put them at ease and they don't want to take it, okay. And especially it didn't affect children as bad as it affected adults. So again, you don't really have strong convincing factors. So it was the message started dying down as they were starting to open to more age categories. The message started to die down, and we just thought, okay, we reached the adults, and with our program, we were able to get at least more than roughly 50, 55-ish adults vaccinated with our outreach population. So we thought that's a success. Mm-hmm. The rest is, yes, the rest will happen on its own.
So what do you do now?
What do I do now? That's a great question. I continue to work with my community. It is volunteer-based, but it is a passion. So I am able to do the work that I want to do, set the schedule that I want to set my own schedule. And I was able to get a fellowship with CBI. It's called Community. It's CBI community-based initiatives. And they were offering a fellowship for 1 year. So I started that last year, and it's ending now. I was able to make up some, cover at least some bills. Yeah. And then I also do interpreting. So I'm an interpreter, remote. I do it part-time, French, English. It's medical interpreting. So that helps pay the bill. And then I'm a student. So,
okay.
Yes.
What are you studying?
I'm pursuing my doctorate degree, and I am doing in public health. And just recently, I got into a fellowship program with the CDC. It's going to be 3 months, so it's going to be short, but I'm excited of what's going to happen. It's going to be policy analysis, so I'm excited, yes.
So you did talk a little bit about, your child's transition, as 5 or 6 years old, transitioning into school. How are you have 1 or 2? I have 2 daughters. The second one was during the pandemic. Okay.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that transition of how was it for you as a mother and being pregnant and having a child during the pandemic?
Yes. First of all, when I quit my job, I thought it's a pandemic, but if we need to have another kid, might as well do it now. And I'm not working full time, so I'll have more time on my hand. But the stories about the hospital being just by yourself or just one person, it was a little bit scary, but we thought, oh, well, it is what it is. So that transition was fine. Now, I briefly talked about this, just the overall solitude that COVID and the lockdown put on everybody, but also being pregnant was like, you gotta be extra careful. If you wanna go out, there was no more, the lockdown was lifted. But if you wanna go out, you got a double mask, triple mask. And my doctor was very caring, but she was like, you have to be very careful. If you're not going to have the vaccine now, because I chose also to wait. If you're not gonna have it now, but be extremely careful. So then I was like, okay, I have to be extremely careful. I have to limit my outings. And that felt a little bit, lonely, just being at the house. And my first daughter slowly transitioned from a hybrid system where they go 2 days in school or something, and then the other days they stay at home. And that was really good for her because I think kids are kids. They thrive in social settings and they learn in social settings. And being isolated, being in her room having to study, they're not learning anything because it's the way they learn, it's interaction with nature. Yeah. Reading is not much. Drawing, we tried that, but there's paper everywhere. There was paper everywhere. But the hybrid transition was really good. I thought that was a risk that I was willing to take, even when some parents were still skeptical. I just realized, I said, kids are not as affected as the adults. And at the time, it was safe to do that. And we realized that her learning with the hybrid was so much faster than that full remote. Remote was convenient as far as waiting for the bus, waking up, getting dressed, but it was just not a very productive environment for her. And once she started going to school, she really loved it. And then eventually they transitioned to fully remote. Now, at the hospital, she couldn't come when I gave birth, which was a little bit sad, but I didn't stay for a long time. She liked that. She wanted to be part of that experience too, being able to come to the hospital. But when we brought our second daughter home, the visits were very limited. So there was not, and in our community, we visit each other. And when people come visit, they don't just come visit, they bring food, they bring stuff. So yes, it helps, not having to cook. But that was limited. It's always this thing, it's the pros and cons. Is the pros, yes, I don't have to be sort of ready all the time to receive people, but at the same time, it's lonely. It's lonely. And with the baby, when people come that 1 hour, they get to carry the baby and help you do stuff. And sometimes you'll have people, it's like, oh, I will help with the dishes. I can clean something real quick or do this. But then just the conversation is really nice. But yes, COVID was very lonely. Yeah.
I can imagine. I'm sorry. Sorry for that experience.
Yes.
How do you feel that now your community has been able to kind of jump back into those traditions? Or is it slow going?
Yes. So I'm going to be careful sharing this. I'm going to try. When, I believe it was 2021, when a lot of the measures it was almost like 75% capacity. We could meet at 75 capacities. Well, in brief, what I could say is when a lot of restrictions were lifted, we went all out. It was like, finally, we're free. We can do whatever. And it was a little bit extreme because the risks of the disease were still there, but people forgot that when we were on lockdown, the reason why we didn't get infected, it was really because of lockdown. And if you decide to go out, then you have to really act as if you are, be aware of the world around you, that it's full of germs, the germs are there. But people didn't really realize that. At the time I was pregnant, so whenever there were parties, for example, like a wedding where I really had to be there, we would discuss this with my husband and said, okay, we're gonna go. But first of all, when in the celebration, I'm far off. I have my double mask and I'm just hand sanitizing all the time. And I do not go to the dance floor. But we sort of let our guards down. And 2021 and 2022 was really bad in terms of deaths in our community.
Really?
Yes. Then 2020. It's almost like in 2020 we felt sort of isolated and forgotten. But when restrictions came down, it was a little bit...
The spread was much higher.
Much higher, and it was maybe a little bit too soon. I don't know, but it was really bad.
I'm sorry.
Yes, and it was just month after month after month. And then I mentioned my in-laws, and in Europe too. Now, we didn't get the full story until we visited last year, and a friend of mine was telling me that, oh yes, Congolese here in general, when there was a lockdown, they would arrange to meet like secretly, underground, but they would meet in groups. And that's why the deaths were also, that's why you guys heard that the deaths were higher here. It's because of those secret meetings. It's just, we are so much person that it's so hard to stay away from communities that will just break those rules. But then the consequences will be really heavy. But also there is on the other side where, yes, once the person is sick, goes to the hospital, the care just felt a little bit, there was a little bit of discrimination where it's like, you don't get to stay on the ventilators, but this person gets to stay. So, yes, it's all 2021 and 2022 were hard. Yes.
I'm so sorry. Is it better now?
Yes. Much better.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Just for, to honor your time and respect you, is there anything else that you would like to share before we finish?
I think that we have to learn from this pandemic. It's not... So first of all, as Congolese, it's at least my generation, it's not the first time we experience an epidemic. In the country, there are things that are endemic, and then once in a while they become an outbreak or things like that. So people sort of are aware of that. But I think that as a country, especially when it's a country with so many different communities, the leadership just has to find ways to do better. And when hiring staffs, when wanting representation, it has to be meaningful, and it has to be really tangible, and there has to be clear goals on how to attack it when there is, how to, what's the word I'm looking for? how to really tackle it there. There you go, how to tackle it when there is an epidemic, when there is a pandemic, or just when there is crisis. I think in this country, there has been a lot of crisis, but sometimes it just feels like the resources is there, but you just don't want to tap into it on time. So we just have to do better. And I think that one thing that I wanted to add, was mentioning it in the beginning, is that I wanted to have a platform where communities will be able to tell the stories of this pandemic. And I was thinking about it in 2021 when the city was doing a project, but it was a different project just to talk about language access. And there was also some questions about COVID-19, how community were resilient. But there was nothing really that came out of it, nothing really tangible. And I just thought there has to be a way where communities can tell their stories, how this affected them, how this changed their life, transformed their lives. Financially, it has been really bad. But it's because we're hopeful, because of faith, because of hope, that we just know it's just, the low valley, and then there's going to be the higher valleys. But we have to do better. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dina.
You're welcome.
Story. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.